So now it gives me great pleasure to introduce Trish McMillan, who holds a Master of Science degree in animal behaviour, and she's a certified professional dog trainer, a certified dog behaviour consultant, and associated certified cat behaviour consultant. And she also has a dog from Puerto Rico as well, which I just saw. She worked for the ASPCA for nearly 8 years, first as the Director of Animal Behaviour at their NYC shelter, then helping assess and rehabilitate dogs from cruelty cases, dog fighting and hoarding situations, and researching, writing and presenting on animal behaviour topics. She owns McMillan Animal Behaviour in North Carolina, where she lives in a tiny house on her farm. So she has a very tiny carbon footprint. Her farm is Pibble Hill. So I think for $1.25, it costs you $1.25 for your electricity if you're cranking everything absolutely up to the max. Very impressive, something we can all learn from. She's also Vice President of Behaviour and Training at Instinct Dog Behaviour and Training. There's more. Trish shares her life with 2 horses, 2 goats, 3 dogs, 6 chickens, and 2 cats. Her professional work includes training and behaviour modification work with dogs, cats, and horses. She speaks and consults nationally and internationally on animal sheltering issues, dog, cat, and horse behaviour, dog aggression, and defensive handling. Trish currently co-chairs the Shelter Behaviour Division of the International Association of Animal Behaviour Consultants and runs their popular online shelter dog behaviour mentorship. So thank you so much, Trish.
Thank you. Well, I'm back in Australia. This is my 2nd time speaking at G2Z. I'm super excited to see everybody here. And I'm really excited about the new theme, sheltering outside of the shelter, for this particular summit. So this is something that's really changed. Like Krista and I have also been in animal welfare since the 90s, and things have changed massively. We did used to be the dog catcher, and people were scared and moved away. And the future of sheltering, I think, is going to be outside of the shelter. I think keeping animals in their homes, keeping good relations with the community, and making the cruelty, seizures, and the rules sort of something that we don't have to enforce, because the community is being helped by us rather than us being the cops. So I live in Asheville, North Carolina. So last time I was here, I extended the invite for any vets who want to come and learn how to do fast spay neuters so they can go to Puerto Rico. I offered them my spare bedroom. Now I can offer you the pull-out couch in the bottom of my tiny house. But if you need a place to stay in Asheville to go through their training to learn how to do these speedy desexing surgeries, come see me. So Asheville's kind of a wonderful place for animal welfare, not only because of the former Humane Alliance, now the ASPCA took that over, but we also have a wonderful shelter, Asheville Humane Society, that works really well with animal control next door, and they are doing fantastic things out in the community. And I've been lucky enough to do a little bit of volunteering. I've done some ride-alongs with them, so I'm going to share some of their programs. So when you're looking at moving some of your programs outside of the shelter, one thing you need to look at is who needs our help. And a great way to do that is to look at where's your highest intake. Where are these animals coming from? Because maybe if you take a few steps outside of the shelter, get the animals cared for in the community, do the desexing surgeries, they won't be coming in, and it makes less work for you, as well as tremendous goodwill for the environment, for the community. So the ASPCA had a whole map-making division when I was there. There were people who were really good at doing these GIS maps. So you can see the red areas are where more animals are coming into the shelters, and that often overlaps with the underserved communities. In New York City, where I used to live, in some of these communities, you would have to, if you didn't have $40 each way for a cab that took animals, you would have to figure out how to get your pit bull in a crate onto the bus, because you can't have animals on public transit. So I think that's something that we could all improve in our communities, is allowing more animals on public transit. So if you had an animal that you wanted to get a rabies shot, you would have to walk it 2 miles or 4 miles to the nearest veterinary clinic. You would have to pay New York City rates for that vaccine. And if you didn't, animal control would be out there looking for your tag, and they would fine you or take your animal away. So these neighborhoods, they're often what we call resource deserts. There is no help for folks there. So found a great map from Kim Wolf, who I consulted with on this because she does amazing work with underserved communities. And here's Brooklyn. And if you look at the poverty rate and you look at where the vet clinics are, if you are living in one of these zones where you probably don't make that much money and you can't get to the vet clinic, like it just becomes this spiral where the animals don't get the care that they need. And we can really help as shelter people just taking a step outside of our comfort zone. Here's a study, 30 to 40% of relinquishments could have been prevented if low-cost outreach services had been provided. So how much is it costing you to intake every one of these animals, and could having the desexing surgery, having the vaccines done in the community, could that prevent some of these animals from coming in? So what we're looking for is we're looking for lower shelter intakes, we're looking for lower euthanasia. Obviously, we're trying to get more adoptions, and getting your shelter out into these neighborhoods and having folks as allies rather than enemies can help get you more adoptions. People will come to your shelter. You're not the dog catcher. You're not going to take their animals if you go in there. You're going to help them find pets. And the community engagement that happens in communities where the sheltering is taken outside of the shelter is just amazing. So if a lot of your intake is litters, one thing that I was struck by the first time I came to Australia is you don't have spay neuter, you don't have Humane Alliance to help with teaching people how to do the fast, low-cost desexing, and you've got the same issues that we had when we first started doing this, where vet clinics are like, we don't want you taking this money from us. But these are not folks, not populations of animals who would be going to the clinic. So it becomes a win-win. So if you're getting a lot of litters, what you need is low-cost surgery for the folks who own these animals. What we do in Asheville, a lot of the going out on the road with the van, we're doing parasite treatment. We are doing just regular routine vaccines. A lot of people don't even have leashes or collars for their animals. So just having a well-stocked van with Kongs, with food, with leashes, with collars, really changes the perception of your shelter in the community. And something that I think we really need worldwide, I'm Canadian, I'm from Ontario originally, and if you look up Fluffy's Law, they brought in a wonderful law in Ontario. They have stupid pit bull laws, but Fluffy's Law is a landlord law where landlords cannot discriminate against people with pets, and I would love to see that brought in worldwide, because as somebody who has rented almost all of my life, I have a friend who called 200 landlords before she found a place to move with her 3 small dogs. If we could help people find a place to live that accepted animals, it would be a wonderful thing for all of us. And my role in these community outreach projects as the behavior person in the community is to go and give some behavior help. And that's often something that can keep animals in their homes. So you kind of have to look at what you have. What do I point this at? There we go. It's not advancing. So think about some of the cruelty cases back in the old days. When I think about some of the cases that were prosecuted, I remember one distinctly where the dog was very old, the owner was very old, both of them are skinny, and what we used to do is take the animal. Like, how much is a dog food? Like, compared to prosecuting a cruelty case for somebody whose animal is only skinny because they needed vet care, they needed a bag of dog food. This is the way of the future. So the way of the past was to take the animal and you're bad and you didn't do this right. But if we can help people where they are, think about how that changes the perception in the community of your shelter, where the people who are there to help. So we are moving away from being the dog catchers, and I think the future of sheltering, we're going to be allies. So here's another case. This is one that I went to personally last month. There's a woman living in, this is not her actual house, but she's living in a similar type of housing. The house is not in the best shape. She has 5 dogs living with her. 2 of the dogs were fighting, which is why I was called in. Some of the dogs had skin conditions. So I went in with the Asheville Humane folks. They gave flea and tick treatment. That's all she needed to get the dog's hair back. And we determined that the thing that would help these dogs the most, because she's on disability, she can't take her 5 large breed dogs out for walks, is if we built a fence for her so the dogs could get out, they could play, they could have exercise. It would bring down the tensions in that house enormously. Oh, that's my Puerto Rican street dog at the bottom. She's smiling. She's not really fighting. So what does she need from us? She needs fencing. That would be the number one thing. She also needed some leashes and harnesses so that she could get the dogs out for walks and give them some exercise. In the meantime, she needed the fleas treated in her house. But these dogs, if we had taken them into our shelter, they're not easily adopted dogs. They're large breed dogs. She lives by herself. She needed the dogs to feel comfortable in her own house. She doesn't live in the best neighborhood, so she's kind of doing our work. She's taking in animals from the community that even if we took them in, we might not be able to rehome them. And she's doing our work, so we should support her. Here's all of the things that she was given. And the one thing that was driven home to me by this particular visit was transport is key. She did not have a car. The facilities where the animals had their spay-neuter surgeries were many miles away. She could not have walked there. She's on disability. And transport was key in getting all of those animals fixed so that they weren't going to become 25 animals by next year. So how do we get started? We need volunteers. Other things you can do. This is not behaving. So pet care helplines, just a little behavior helpline. It's amazing to me how many of the folks who are considering relinquishing to shelters are doing so for behavior reasons, and often just a tiny bit of advice, a tiny bit of help with a crate, with a protocol for house training, can keep those animals in their homes. These are some of the other things that we have in Asheville. We've got a great pet food pantry where people can go and get their get food, get Kongs, get enrichment toys for their animals. There have been a lot of vaccine clinics where we take the van into the areas where it's hard to get to a vet. And it was amazing driving around, just doing a ride along with with Pia Cash, who's our head volunteer outreach person. She's not a volunteer. She works for the shelter. We had people running up to the van going, "Oh, you're the van from Asheville Humane. I got my cat's due for her vaccine. When is your next clinic? When are you going to be back in our neighborhood?" There were people running up. Like you said, people really want to care for their animals. We just need to help them out. Here's a typical pet food pantry. This is something folks love to donate to. In your community, it would be really easy. Just ask. Just ask and say, we need food, we need bowls, we need blankets, we need toys, and your community would be delighted to fill a pet food pantry up. You may need to have a way to get that food to the people. Not everybody can get there and carry a 40-pound bag of dog food home, but anytime we have asked for something at the pet food pantry, Asheville just steps up and brings in whatever's needed. It's going backwards. There's my Puerto Rican street dog again. She's in a lot of these pictures. She's very talented. So helpline is amazing to have. If you call Asheville, it is a recording, but people can ask for things. A volunteer will get back to them, let them know where the next event's going to be, let them know how to get a voucher for desexing surgery. It's really important to train your volunteers well. It's a different world for a lot of the folks who come in and volunteer in a shelter to be talking to folks from these underserved communities. So they need to be given scripts. They need to be coached in how to be helpful and non-judgmental. So I've helped out with a couple of vaccine clinics, both with the ASPCA and with Asheville Humane. And it is incredible how early people will line up. They really want to do the right thing for their pets. So if you look in your community, you look at where the vet clinics are, you look at where the vet clinics aren't, you look at where your intake's coming from, you'll have a map pretty quickly of where you need to set up a clinic. So I have been part of the triage team on these as the behavior person. I will go and walk the line, and if there's a dog who is lunging and barking, if there's a cat who needs a carrier, I will sort of triage and hand out leashes and say, okay, you are after this dog, but you're gonna go be under the tree over there, and when it's your turn to come up for vaccines, we'll come and get you so that the dog is not standing in line freaking out the other animals. And I can also help, let us help fit your dog with a harness. Let's give you some of the equipment. I can show you how to use the equipment, and we'll often have a tent off to the side, so if the triage team spots a behavior problem, they can shoot people over to us to help out. So it really builds trust in the shelter when I've done some cases with the ASPCA, particularly with hoarding cases where you go in and you try to get a couple of animals out at a time, get them desexed, get them back. The first visit's always the hardest because people don't trust the shelter. They're like, nope, no, we cannot give you an animal. You're going to keep it and not bring it back. But once you get some of these folks on your side, they become community ambassadors. And I was lucky to meet some of those folks on my ride along with Pia who had just come running up. And they were the ones in the community saying, no, they took my dog. They put it on the transport. They brought him back. He'd been desexed. He's had his shots. He's had some flea treatment. It's perfectly safe. Please trust Asheville Humane. So some of the folks that you help become your best advocates. Where am I supposed to point this thing? At you guys? So I've done a little bit of advocacy in my own life. This is, when I first moved to North Carolina, there's a lot of dogs on chains. It's the South. The weather's not as harsh as it is in Canada. We don't have as many dogs on chains in Canada because they won't survive the winter. But this was a dog who was living across the street from me, and all I saw was her outline going from her kennel, coming out and greeting her owner while he brought food out twice a day for her. I never saw her go for a walk. And I sat there for 2 years feeling really angry with my neighbors. I had never spoken to them. They're up a hill. They'd come and go in their cars, and I just thought, why would you have an animal and put her on a chain? And finally, one Christmas, I was just so tired of looking at this dog on the chain, I went over with a tray of Christmas cookies, because I had been watching my friends going out and doing outreach in the community. I'm like, I can do this. And it turned out he had saved this animal, this beautiful 8-year-old German short-haired pointer who had been out on a leash for out on a chain for 3 years. He had saved her from someone who wanted to kill her for killing his bunnies. She's apparently a bunny chaser. And she had been a house dog, but then his daughter had moved in with her 2 little kids, and the kids kept leaving the door open, and the dog kept escaping, and she will run if she escapes. So the only reason she was on the chain was to keep her from knocking over the kids. And once I just leaned on the porch and said, that's a beautiful dog, tell me about her. And this whole story came out, and I thought, I have been judging him. He gave me the dog. So I had her for a couple of weeks. I got that tumor taken off her belly. She had already been desexed, but we took care of some medical issues with her. She got to spend Christmas inside, and she was house trained. She was a great dog, great with people, great with dogs, and I found her a home. And it's really taught me that even in my own neighborhood, just talk to people, be respectful. Certainly, a number of my neighbors have just said, thank you, we're good, thanks for the cookies, bye. But showing up and bringing something and saying, we can help you with this, can really make a huge difference. So I know we've got more folks talking about Pets for Life. They have a lot of material online. If you haven't been to the HSUS sheltering website, there are a lot of tips and tricks on getting started with outreach in your community. I know others are going to be speaking about it, so I'm not going to go into great detail. But I will tell you about my friend Kim Wolf, She's only an online friend. She lives 3.5 hours from me, so we're going to have to get together. But I asked her, what are your tips for Australians who want to get out of the shelter and start working with folks in their community? When I first virtually met her, she was working in New York City. She's the one I got that Brooklyn map from. And she was going around with a tricycle with a big ice cream container on the front of it that was full of dog food and supplies. Her charity was called Beyond Breed, and she's still active on the Beyond Breed Facebook page, but she's moved on. So she's now working with seniors. She's doing a master's degree, and she is particularly targeting the relationship between seniors and pets. So I asked her, what are a few things you would like me to tell Australia in 30 minutes about seniors and pets? And I'm hoping she'll come back and speak in person on this, because she's amazing. She does great work. But she said, this is kind of going to be another big wave in the future of sheltering, because we are all getting older. Numbers of seniors are going up worldwide in Australia and in the United States of older people with pets. So the percentage of your adopters, the percentage of folks in your community who are going to need help with pets is going to be increasingly seniors. She said it's not a uniform population. We are all going to get old. It's going to happen to every one of us if we're lucky. And if I was a senior on a fixed income, and I am always going to have pets, I can tell you that for sure, I would be pretty offended if I went to the shelter and you said, you can only have a pet over 7 years old. I am planning to live to be 100. So if I go in there at 80 and you tell me I can only have a senior pet or I can only have a small pet, I'm a pit bull and Doberman person. Maybe I will get sensible and get interested in smaller breed dogs, but maybe not. And I'm a trainer, and I can train a Doberman to walk beside me without pulling. So for you to say you are over 65, you have to get a dog under 40 pounds, that's not fair. So if you're putting rules on folks, my parents are in their 80s, and if they pass away and they have a pet, you could bet that one of their 4 crazy animal-loving children is going to step up and take care of that pet. So we could be a little less judgmental about seniors is the crux of what Kim told me. And she said, the vulnerable seniors, the seniors who can't get out, who don't have transportation, they deserve to have companion animals. Some of these animals are the best taken care of animals I have met. I've met pets of the homeless who are better taken care of than some of my wealthy clients who leave the dog in a crate for 8 hours at night, leave the dog in the crate for 10 hours during the day. It gets walked around the block by a dog walker. These are well-loved animals, and they deserve to stay with their people. So here's some more of Asheville Humane Programs. I could go on all day about all of the cool things that happen, but the community vet days, going in-home, the in-home visits are really key, getting out there. They've done voucher programs for those of us in the behavior community. They will, if we send them an invoice, they will pay for up to 2 visits for us to go to homes to stop animals from coming into the shelter. But I've had more success when I go to the clinics and I talk to people in person, because if you hand people a voucher, they've got to make that phone call. We've got to coordinate. I've got to get there. It's it's many more hoops to jump through, whereas if you're doing the outreach and you have behavior folks there, you could keep more animals in their homes. So I'm not sure how we can fix the voucher problem. Some of my most interesting and rewarding work with sheltering has been the folks who do make the phone call, where I do go into the home. I find they've been really, really receptive. They've been really compliant with the things I've suggested. They've been very grateful for the stuff that I bring to them. So vouchers are a problem. The desexing vouchers and the behavior vouchers, asking people to jump through hoops, asking people to prove that they really need them is an issue. So there's the behavior tent at one of the community days. And again, just like everybody else says, we get lineups for hours and hours. People will wait to do what is right for their pet. So I'm going to click through these because I've only got 5 minutes, but I want to show you the video of some of the outreach that's done by Asheville Humane. We have, they did build a dog park in one of the communities that they serve. It was pretty amazing, because if you have to take your dog out on leash every single day and they don't get to play with other dogs, they can start desocializing. So the dog park and the fence builds are a really big part of keeping pets in their homes and getting pets off chains. So I'm going to show you this video of a dog that they helped out. I've been to this guy's house, and this is an intact 12-year-old boxer that they helped out.
Yeah, my name's Matthew, and I live over here in Emma area. This is my boxer dog Zeke. I've had him since he was born. I used to have his parents. And Zeke's little over 10 years old. And about 5 months ago, he started developing a problem with his back hip. And I'm thankful for the help that I'm getting through the Humane Society. They set him up with a veterinarian. And then Wendy got it arranged and got a wheelchair for him. Seems to be doing all right for his second day in it. Yeah, I mean, he's my dog. He's like my kid. I've had him for a little over 10 years. Had him since he was born. And in a way, he kind of keeps me calm, I have to say.
So this is some of the wonderful work that can be done. The boxer did not live a huge amount of time after the wheelchair was donated, but guess where he got his next dog? Guess who's now an advocate for our shelters? So think about taking a step outside of your shelter, take small steps, provide services that your community needs, become more than the dog catcher, become the helper, and you're going to be able to save more animals, and you're going to have a much better profile in the community. So thank you for coming.